Statistically, men are dropping out of education at an alarmingly high rate.
There's this grappling between the binaries, or the nominal binaries of life that we need in order to create some form of progression.
You have to actively remove yourself from that and surround yourself with the people who are on the same wavelength.
Olly came on, I thought it was about a year actually, but it hasn't been a year. It was August. But that's fine. It's good. It's been too long anyway. And there's so much to talk about. Olly, what have you been up to? Where have you been?
Yeah. Yeah. Where do I start with it?
Yeah.
But just a heads up, by the way, to sort of go into this. I'm currently in Vietnam at the moment, and it's an amazing place. But one of the things you find out here is the internet is not amazing. So if there is a bit of lag, blame it on them. But
yeah,
let's get into it. So when we last spoke, I was in Leeds, and then I left the UK at quite short notice in Leeds, January. I decided in December that I'd had enough. I mean, I knew I wanted to leave the UK for the last 3 years, regardless. But yeah, it just got to a point where I was in the winter in Leeds and said, "Fuck this! I don't want to do it anymore." So yeah, I left to Thailand at very short notice. Spent a week in Dubai with a mate who was out there. Went to Thailand, and then I've been hopping around Southeast Asia for the last 6 months.
What's it like in Southeast Asia?
Yeah.
What you do?
I mean, look, it depends. It depends where you go. It depends on the country that you go to and the time of year, and obviously the places that you go within those countries as well. So do you want me to answer that as like a general thing of Southeast Asia, or is there any specific countries you'd like me to dig in?
How does it has the lifestyle change been worthwhile? Is it what you were expecting? Have you at one point thought, oh, this is a little bit overrated? Or has it actually been, were your desires, were they accurate, so to speak?
Yeah, they were accurate. I mean, I'd been to Southeast Asia before, so I knew what it was like out here. The only thing that is a downside that I also anticipated actually was, as I said, the internet. It can be a real pain in certain places. Depends where you go, though. Like Thailand has better internet than the UK. Their 5G is so accessible and it's fast as well. But then you can go to some of the more remote places in like Indonesia, or even not even that remote, like Lombok, which is one of the main islands. Their internet is terrible and it makes work really difficult there. Vietnam, not great either. But aside from that, it's great. It's far cheaper. The weather is so much better. The locals are far more friendly. They're altruistic. They're happy. The foreigners out here, so the Westerners, they're much happier being out here just because of that general feeling, the weather, the good food, the whole culture. It's just so much better, man. And like, aside from work related stress, it's had such a positive impact on my well-being. Particularly, the one thing I noticed was through my skin. Like, I have a condition called rosacea, which causes redness at the middle channel of the face, and it can lead to they look like spots. It looks like acne. It can create these really horrible boils that are really painful, like these pussy spots. Virtually gone since I've been out here.
Wow.
And the sun is actually meant to be a trigger for it, right? And it's really sunny here. And I think a huge reason for that is just because of the dietary changes and the lifestyle changes, just making me more at ease. Honestly, I cannot exaggerate anymore or overemphasize how shit the UK is for a lot of young people and how much better life can be elsewhere.
Yeah. We'll definitely get onto that. But I also think, just going back to the sun, I think the sun's been given such a bad rap by sort of medical professionals. Like, I don't think the sun is anywhere. Obviously, skin cancer is a very real thing, but if you Google, because I've suffered a lot of acne growing up, and if you Google acne and sun, it all says no, sun is really bad for acne. It's absolute rubbish. Sun is
Mm.
phenomenal for acne. Do not listen to people when they say that. Sun, I don't know if it has the capacity to kill to kill bacteria, but it certainly, yeah, sun and sea, which I'm sure you've been in the sea to
Yeah,
some degree as well. So, you
yeah,
know, two best things for skin are sun and salt water. Phenomenal
yeah,
assets.
yeah.
How's the coaching business going?
Yeah, so it's taken a few forms, and at the moment, I'm currently redefining the offer that I've got because I kind of went into it on a whim, and on reflection, I didn't put enough thought into the target audience and the offer that I had. But yeah, I've got a more concise offer with what I'm doing now, and I'm starting to work with the right kind of people. Like initially, I was attracting a
Good.
very
Yeah.
random crowd and sort of people
Mm.
who they just weren't really aligned for it. Like they didn't know what they were booking on for, and we weren't suitable to work together. But now, like that momentum
Mm.
is starting to pick up. Statistically, men are dropping out of education at an alarmingly high rate, and this is happening across the West. If you look at the work of Richard Reeves and the book of Boys and Men, he speaks about
Mm.
it as the primary inequality that men face in the world at the moment. And I think if we're going to relate it back to the UK, like the example you've used there, people are disenfranchised with the university system because it is a fucking con. It is an
It is a
absolute con.
con.
You pay an enormous amount of money to develop a skill set that isn't useful in the present day workforce unless you have a very specialized degree like engineering or medicine. The youth, Gen Z and millennials, were indoctrinated by their education system and by society to believe that the route to success is go to uni, get a good job, and climb the ladder. And people have done that, and they've just acquired an enormous amount of debt now for fuck all returns. Like, this is what I did. I went to a top uni, I got the best degree you can in the humanities. And what happened? I landed a job on 25K a year in London. I ended up in more debt living there than I had before I moved there. And it was meant to be a fucking investment in my career. And the youth of
Yeah.
today, they can see this. They can see that the ROI on university just isn't there. Traditional education isn't delivering to the needs of the market. And there is so much more opportunity now for people to just go online. One, they could learn for free. Like they can learn a high income skill for free off YouTube and generate
Completely.
more money than they would from their degree, let alone, so that's the free. And then if you do actually invest, you speed up the process. You spend a couple grand with a business coach. You learn to set up your own business, and before you know it, within like a few years, you're earning way above the average, and you've got freedom. So it's like, why on earth would people go down this traditional route? Like the education
Yeah,
system is just it's becoming increasingly outdated, and for it to sustain itself, it needs to rebrand. It needs to cut
it does.
its costs or adapt to the needs of the market.
I'll just say this one thing. Just going back to the English thing, right? There's a culture in England which isn't. I think Chris Williamson said this, and I've sort of found this as well, like doing the podcast, and maybe you have. But there's a culture of England which is everyone. We're polite, but we're also subtly, begrudgingly not willing to encourage people, and we don't like people that try and put their head above the parapet. We want to cut people down. And in
Yeah,
America, it's not like that at all. The
yeah,
going back to sort of narratives, a positive narrative is the American dream, and how the American dream is might not be relevant anymore, but it's seeped into the psyche of America, and the
yeah,
roots are there. So they're very encouraging of each other. And in England, that just is not the case at all. And it's been quite shocking for me actually, whilst doing the podcast, what
yeah,
lack of support and encouragement I've received from people. And
yeah.
And that's another thing. That's another problem with the UK, that we have that culture is very much embedded in us, and it's a real shame.
Yeah, it really is. I'd reiterate that, and I can't stress how many times I've had this conversation with people. You know, I in my previous job I worked with Americans all the time, and I work with Americans now. I'm engaged with a lot of Americans on social media. I meet a lot of Americans out here, and it
Yeah,
is exactly that, as you've said. They have this inbuilt ambition, optimism, willingness to take risk that is so much easier to to work with, and it's so much more motivating. Now, don't get me wrong, as you've said, the American dream. Sure, not everyone can make it. Not everyone is going to make
yeah,
it. But I
of
genuinely
course,
believe that if more British people adopted the American optimism and self belief, we would have far more people running their own businesses, far more millionaires, like just more people doing the things they want to do. It's
completely.
almost like a contagious optimism, the reverse of
Yeah,
it. And again, I find it so much better to be around. But in the UK and Australia is really bad for this as well. The Aussies are
really.
even worse. The tall poppy
Wow.
syndrome, like
Yeah,
it, anybody who aspires to be better, you chop them down. Like why are you trying to get ahead of yourself? Like, oh, I see a rich person over there. Oh, they must have scammed their way to it. Oh, they don't fucking deserve it. Oh, who look at that twat, like who does he think he is? It's just a sheep
yeah,
mentality that keeps people trapped in their misery. And I don't fully understand why we have it that way, but it is a means of societal and ideological control that stops us aspiring for better and stops people doing what they want to do. And you have to actively remove yourself from that and surround yourself with the people who are on the same wavelength. Because don't get me wrong, in the UK, there are those people. There are a
yeah, of course.
minority of very entrepreneurial and ambitious people. It's just you really have to connect with them. And that's why doing things like this, moving to places like Bali, Dubai. I know Dubai gets loads of shit for being materialistic, but I would much rather live in Dubai than the UK
Yeah,
because, again,
yeah,
it's full of those people. And when you surround yourself with those people, you are the sum of your environment and it rubs off on you.
mm,
It's so much more motivating. You will feel better in yourself. So, like, I would always say to people, like, if you can set up a business that targets the American audience, do it because you will find it a hell of
yeah,
a lot easier and a hell of a lot more rewarding. Just get used to them not understanding your humor and sarcasm.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, and probably laughing at things that just aren't funny. They're just
Yeah,
like, I just think
yeah,
some American comedy, they're cracking up, and you just think like, what's going on? Yeah, but it is. It's. I think the reason is because I wrote a blog post the other day that I just put out yesterday about why do people not let go of things when they know they should, and the reason,
mm,
well, sort of to use a Bible analogy, which I used in the blog, when Moses led the Jews away from the slavery of the Egyptians, he didn't lead them into the promised land immediately. He led them into the desert. And some people, I think it was written that some of them actually said, "Can we go back to the Egyptians because what we're suffering from now is actually worse than what we were suffering previously," which is why people don't let go of the tyrannical views or the tyrannical relationships, etc., etc. And I think there's some kind of, if as a nation or as individuals, because that's all that really matters, for us to let go of that um, slight, maybe resentment's a bit strong, but the idea that anyone doing positively reflects badly on you. In
mm,
order to let go of that, it's a very, very painful process, and you have to be willing and infused enough, because enthusiasm is the right word, to
yeah,
basically say, okay, the idea is that, because this is where capitalism is great. This is the good side of
yeah,
capitalism, is that person A benefits, but then so does person A so does person B all the way down to Z. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't benefit as much as person A, because after all, person A is the person that created or developed. But the idea is that you create a product or a service that brings other people up, and therefore their lives improve as much as, or not almost, or at least they improve slightly than they were before person A did whatever they did. Do you get what I mean? That's the whole point. That's good capitalism and good commerce and entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
the
I'd
spin
agree.
of it. Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I'd agree. I was thinking about it this morning actually, like in terms of what we're moving into now with the digital and creator economy, because it it is capitalistic. It is a form of capitalism, but it isn't one that relies on exploitation in the way that Marxist inclined people would refer to traditional
exactly,
capitalism.
exactly.
Because you now have the opportunity to just be yourself and help others to deliver a service and yet it is in the pursuit of capital, of money, but like sort of combination, it can be that, but also in the pursuit of genuinely just your interest, and
Yeah,
that is a positive system because it isn't fucking people over, which capitalism really can do. Like
yeah,
traditional
completely.
capitalism in the industrial age was shit, and there still is plenty of bad capitalism out there where people are exploited and bad people make loads of money. But now we're moving into this system where there is a real opportunity to deliver value and help others and make a living from that. Like the example I was thinking of earlier, I don't know if he's making money from it, but based on the size of his channel now, I would assume he is. There's this guy I've followed on YouTube for a while. I've forgotten his name. I think it's Simon, and he's an academic who is really interested in language, particularly like Old English, and he
Hmm.
does these videos that will be like what a conversation in Saxon England would have sounded like. Like
Nice.
he's I think he's doing his PhD in archaeology or something along those lines. And to a lot of people, they probably just see him as like a bit of a nerd. Like he's an intellectual and an academic, but all he's doing is sharing his learnings, his wisdom on a social media platform. And based on his account size and where he's at the moment, he could monetize that. Like, and
Yeah,
how is that exploitative? Like, it's a really fucking
exactly.
good opportunity, and I think people just need to see this. They need to realize now we are, as people like Dan Coe say, we are in like the new renaissance. This is a new gold rush, and there is an opportunity for so many people to just have a better life and more fulfillment and freedom by doing what they actually want to do. And if people can get over that initial cynicism and the mental blocks that they have, they can thrive in it.
Yeah, the YouTube and social media is a perfect example. Obviously, there is, there's an algorithm and there's moderation and stuff like that, and that can sometimes get in the way of complete and utter
Mm,
free agency and free pursuit. But
it's
and you
true.
can debate and you can debate whether or not at which point that becomes oppressive and authoritarian for the sake of it. But
True.
you're completely right. Like
Yeah.
YouTube and and all the forms of social media and stuff, they they've created a decentralized platform where people can be creative, be expressive, be academic, and spread knowledge, wisdom, joy, all through through doing that, and they can become self-employed and they're free
Mm,
agents, so to speak. And that is a great benefit of technology and an
yeah.
example of how the sort of the ethos behind capitalism and a free market, which you're completely right, is it can be incredibly damaging. And I often wonder if, well, not wonder, but it's obvious that we're the sort of creatures that unfortunately our greatest desires are very easily exploited, such as food and uh, sex and things like that. They can be very much tapped and utilized for things that are not good for us. But maybe in the rung slightly below that, there are a lot of pursuits that are incredibly admirable and incredibly helpful to enriching our lives, and that's what
Yeah,
this renaissance, as you said, will hopefully contribute to.
I hope so. And I
Touch wood.
think another point to add to this, to sort of tie it in with what we were saying about the British mindset as well. So the British mindset and then the opportunity you have here. One thing I've learned, right? When you start shifting your mindset towards more of an entrepreneurial, ambitious, and optimistic outlook, it really changes your mood for the better.
Yeah.
Like it's very liberating. It for me is one of the biggest contributors to my mental health improving
Mhm.
and not feeling so depressed and caught up in a victim mindset that I really did have through years of depression, like this
Yeah.
just self-defeating lack of belief and lack of hope. And don't get me wrong, depression is a complicated condition that deeply ingrains itself.
Yeah.
But a lot of British people they share those sort of depressive tendencies of believing that everything is fucked and that they're powerless to do anything about it. Particularly Gen Z, a lot of Gen Z really have this idea that we've inherited a shit sack, which we have. The system is breaking people, but when you shift that mindset towards more of the ambitious self ownership, internal locus of control, that shift, it really does liberate you. And even if you aren't rich or you don't have your business fully up and running yet, just putting yourself into that mindset that you are going to and that you're on track towards that happening, it really makes you feel so much better. And if you have more people in that mindset, you create happier communities as well.
Completely. Yeah. I think that is the key. We're both a drop in. We're all a drop in the. We are all both a drop in the ocean and the ocean itself. So the
Mm.
collective unconscious and the conscious is very much dependent upon everyone else, and we all impact each other in more ways that we can fully comprehend, I believe, which is why all
Yeah.
the atrocities and things going on in the world it's just such a shame to say the least, really, because it's not only is it awful for them, evidently, but it's also awful for the whole world, which is why,
Mm.
yeah, things like the news possibly aren't the best, especially if you're feeling depressed and things like that. So let's talk about fighting and all the pow you've been doing recently, and how did you get into that, and what has that taught you? And yes, let's just give a little speech on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we spoke last time, I was training as well. I've been
Okay,
doing Muay Thai for 2 years now.
nice.
So, yeah, Muay Thai. If any of your listeners aren't familiar with it, is Thai kickboxing. It's a form of kickboxing that incorporates knees, elbows, and something called a clinch, which is like a form of wrestling that you do, but where you elbow people in the face and you try to break their ribs
Nice.
with your knees. So it's pretty horrible. But
Damn.
yeah, I've been training quite intensely. I upped my intensity when I was in Leeds. I was doing it 3 to 4 times a week, and then came out to Thailand
Wow.
where Muay Thai is an enormous part of Thai culture. Like they have an entire ministry of their government dedicated to it. Like they're very, very proud
Wow.
of Muay Thai. It's very deeply ingrained in the culture. So yeah, came out here to
Mm.
train again. I did train Muay Thai in Thailand 4 years ago as well. But yeah, it's again in relation to sort of self improvement and mindset and your general well being. Like for me, it's been so positive doing it, particularly around self esteem. Just getting your heart rate up, having something to identify with, the community that you get from it. And I've actually not been doing it so much in Vietnam lately, which is a bit annoying because the class times here aren't as convenient. But I'm going to go back to
So
Thailand in a few
done
weeks,
loads.
partly for that.
Yeah, definitely. Um, So is it like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? That's the only sort of thing I have to reference it to.
No,
No.
no.
Okay.
BJJ is grappling. Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is on the ground.
Oh
It's where
yes, that's true.
you manipulate you put people you manipulate their joints to get them to tap out, or you literally like submit them
Kill them.
by you might choke them out. Yeah, well, yeah, that could happen. I mean,
Oh,
Muay
knock
Thai
them
as
out.
well. Muay
Okay.
Thai
Okay.
originally
Interesting.
it originates from a hand-to-hand combat that the Siamese used. It was designed to kill people originally,
Nice.
um, like and you could like kneeing and elbowing people in the head is very fucking dangerous. But
Yeah.
they're sports. So Muay Thai is a striking sport, like punching, kicking,
Mm.
knees, elbows, and
Okay.
clinching. And then people often incorporate BJJ and Muay Thai so that they've got a striking and a grappling. And that's when you're
Mm.
looking at MMA, mixed martial arts, which is a combination of fighting on your feet and fighting on the ground.
Okay, I get you now. Yeah. Have you ever done Krav Maga?
I've done
No, have
tiny
you heard of
bits of
that?
Krav Maga. Like, yeah, Krav Maga is it's not a martial art. It's the IDF's hand to hand combat system. It was developed for the IDF to
Okay.
deal with hand to hand situations. So the only rules in Krav Maga are kill or be killed. Pretty much, it's like
Nice.
you either kill the other person or cripple them, or it happens to you. It's just all about survival. So it incorporates nearly all martial arts, and then also things like dealing with knives, disarming guns, etc., etc. Like Krav Maga in terms of if you want to know self defense, like you're not looking to do sport. If you just want to know how to defend yourself, Krav Maga is the best thing to do because they're going to teach you the most horrible techniques like eye gouging, tearing people's throats out, pulling their armpit hair, like bursting their testicles. Like it's just really, really fucking nasty stuff. But
Mad.
if you're in a life or death
Okay, yeah.
situation, you might need to know.
What about like dating and that? How is that? How's that been different? Is that any different in Thailand? Is that in Southeast Asia?
I could speak about this for a while. So, look, when you come to Southeast Asia, there is a particular demographic of people that come out here.
Yeah.
Generally, old white men and or middle aged
Really?
white men, and some young. Yeah. So I'll explain a bit. Like there's a
Oh
long
wow. Okay.
history of them coming out here for the local women.
Oh yes, yes, yes,
The
yes,
the
yes. I get you now.
passport bros. Then you've obviously got the normal dating for the average people. So you've still got all the
Yeah.
dating apps. There's all the Westerners that are out here as well, just dating normally, right?
Yeah. Mm.
And yeah, I think again, it depends where you go. When people are backpacking and they're traveling, things can get quite frisky. There's a lot
Yeah.
of casual hookups, short term relationships because people know that they're then potentially not going to see the person again. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's that. It can be easier, I guess. Like it can be easier to meet people, and people are happier as well out here. They're not worrying about
Yeah.
their jobs and everything, so they're just like, yeah, fuck it, we'll go for it. But
Exactly.
yeah, I don't know if you saw my social post, but I've had a bit of a significant change in my own life with this stuff since coming out here.
No, I don't. I've looked at a couple. I looked at your ensuite shit video, but I haven't seen Del. Yeah,
Yeah.
delve and part two as well.
Uh,
Delve into that then.
Yeah, so I mean, look, I came out here with the intention of starting my new life as like a single free man, like freedom, blah blah blah, financial freedom, location freedom, relationship freedom, whatever it is. And I, for the first few months, that's how it was. I also repped in a hostel for a little while, and yeah, there's uh, associations that come with being a rep in a hostel that are true. So yeah, I took advantage of single life, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I met a girl and fell in love.
Oh wow! You met a girl and fell
Yeah,
in love. That's so
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Where did you meet?
yeah. No. We met in Thailand, um, and then we spent some time in Bali together, Lombok and Bali. After that,
Of
but
course.
yeah, she's from the Netherlands and has
Yes,
gone
very
back to
good.
the Netherlands now. So I'm in a really weird situation, man, where like I've come out here,
Oh,
I'm growing my
oh.
business, I'm going monk mode on that, but like at the same time, honestly feeling I guess kind of heartbroken and like heart sunken. And when I'm not distracting myself with work and just focusing on this, like she is the main thing on my
She is what
mind.
you're thinking
And
about. Yeah.
yeah,
Are you gonna?
it's a weird situation to navigate because we're separated by distance and yeah, the logistics of of her being in a country that I can only go to for 3 months of the year.
Yes. Oh, wait. Can't you do a thing where you go for 3 months and then come back for a few days and then go back again?
I don't. I need to look into how it works, but yeah, I can't remember if that's a loophole. I think it's you can only be in the country for 180 days in a given period of time. Like
Because
I
okay.
was I was chatting to an American girl who had a German boyfriend, and she was saying that she lived in Germany, I think, for 3 or 4 months of the year, but then had to be out of the country for X amount of
Mm,
time. And I have a feeling the UK is on that same um, platform as the Americans are with it now. So yeah, I don't know, but also I don't know if I really want to be in the Netherlands that much of the year because the Netherlands is pretty much the same weather as the UK. It's pretty much just as expensive.
yeah. Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Exactly.
I'm not really feeling Northern Europe to be honest. Western and Northern
No, that's
Europe.
fair enough. Amsterdam though is pretty cool. She's from Amsterdam.
It is a cool
But
city, expensive.
it's
That's the
expensive,
downside.
yeah.
Like my situation I'm in at the moment with my business. Like I get by out here because your cost of living is a lot lower, but for me to get
Yes.
by in Amsterdam, I'd really need things to take off, and
Yes,
I'm confident that they will eventually. But right
definitely.
now, when it's like the rawness of being separated from her, it's like, oh shit, what do I do?
Oh, Ollie, man, I didn't know. That's hard. That's great news and also sad news at the same time. Which maybe
It's
that's
a
kind
good
of
way
what
to describe it.
life. Yeah, exactly. Is life. That's when life is done best. I think in a weird way, when it's great news and
Yeah,
in the sense of like an
yeah,
elevator music. Elevator music isn't exciting, but a great piece of music has highs and lows. But still, you've got to take the. It's a cliche, but there's no highs without a lows. But anyway, that's really good. I'm glad. I'm glad for you, man. And hopefully she'll come back and you can go and see her, or you can meet. And she'll come to England.
there was research that shows like people are biologically some people are they're more prone to being conservative or liberal, right? And upbringing, environment, the combination of all of them, they shape people into being either conservative or liberal, and that is normal. That's fine. You need both of them, but they are as important. Like a way that I would describe it is similar to in business, right? You have an entrepreneur, you have the CEO, they have the ideas, they're the progressive, right? The thinker. And then you have your chief risk officer, who is the accountant who reins them
Mm,
in and is able to
mm,
see like where this innovation and ambition to change things could go wrong. They predict
yeah,
the scenarios ahead. And both of those people are equally as important. And that is the same
absolutely.
in politics. There are institutions and parts of our culture that we should protect and we should hold on to. And there are things that we shouldn't and we need to change. I think the best way, particularly to understand conservatism, or the way that a way that really changed it for me, was when Sir Roger Scruton described conservatism as a love for that is good in society. And it just makes perfect sense. Like, some people are going to really appreciate things that we have in society, and who am I as a more liberal and progressive sort of ambitious thinker to say, actually, like, no, you're just a bigoted old person or a bigger who doesn't want to let go of something that needs changing. Like, we need both of them, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
I agree with everything that you've just said in terms of your analogy. I think you've just articulated it into a more concise model.
not that concise, but yeah, it's in the early nascent stages, but yeah, it's it's kind of like there's the grappling. I mentioned this on another podcast. I found out the other day that Eve, in terms of Adam and Eve, um, means necessary or necessary adversary. So the whole point was
Okay.
that Adam and Eve, there's this grappling between the binaries of the nominal binaries of life that we need in order to create some form of progression. That's where that's where it's the dichotomy of the two things pushing against each other, where something new comes out of, in the same sense that we're a result of our parents. They're taking the two things, they create something new that goes on to in theory rectify the new society and bring uh I don't know, increased quality of life, to use for lack of a better
Hmm.
term. But that's what's sort of going on there, is this, the grappling is so necessary for progression, but we
Yeah.
don't understand that a lot of the time. We
Yeah.
think
Absolutely.
grappling is
It's. I mean,
a problem.
in its simplest explanation, you need to be exposed to different ideas and have your ideas scrutinized. Like, if you're just looking at things through one channel, you aren't gaining access to the plethora of approaches and
Yeah,
experiences that come
exactly.
with humanity. Like, that's like why you have two houses in, or two sides in Parliament. Like, it's that push pull. Like, or in a debate, what's the aim? To come to a consensus or a level of
Consensus. Yeah,
understanding, and how do you get to that? By the exchange of ideas and pointing out where things might be different. Like, you literally did it to me earlier when I spoke about how amazing the digital economy is, and then you pointed out the also the counter argument that, well, it could still be exploitative because YouTube are in control of what's going out there, and
mm.
is that really freedom? I hadn't thought about that yet, but you pointed it out, and now my wisdom has improved from that. It's like, it's so important that we have that. And yeah, I think in the present day, particularly with young people in the polarization of politics, that recognition and appreciation of how important that is just isn't there,
Is
and
being
that's got to
diminished
change.
completely. Yeah, it's got to
Yeah.
change. Yeah, Carl Jung said that he said that honest dialogue was curative. Open, honest dialogue was curative, and I think that that's completely true. But it stems back to the thing that I started talking about near the beginning of the story from the Bible, where with Moses not letting go, Moses, where with the Jews not wanting to leave the tyranny because they were, or realizing that they were now in the desert. It is letting go process is so difficult. We cling on to our ideologies because they
Yep.
actually sustain us in ways that we have no idea, and that can be
Absolutely.
really corrosive when it's getting bad.
Yeah. People very much over identify with their political beliefs. It becomes a deeply
Yeah,
ingrained part of their ego and their identity, to the extent that when you challenge the political system, like, let's say they identify as a socialist, you criticize socialism, it becomes an attack on them. And
yeah,
I think that's more a reflection of immaturity, but it is still something that a lot of people have as they get older as well. Like, I've met so many politically stupid adults in my life. Like, as elitist as it it may sound like, just of all ages, the amount of people who I just think you are a fucking idiot in terms of this. Like you simply cannot see like how deeply ingrained you are in your system, and that not everyone is going to agree with you, and that is okay. They just don't let it go, and I think it ultimately becomes an ego problem that, in my belief, would probably be better addressed if people learned more things like meditative practices and had education around ego and the philosophy around that. If they learned from systems like Taoism with yin yang behind you, like Buddhism, the Eastern philosophies that really get you to sort of understand your processes and the flow of life, I think that would do a lot to help us have a more conducive and cooperative society where we can discuss things in a way that is beneficial to everyone.
Ollie, we're going to end here. Before we end, what are you hoping to do in the next 6 months, other than go to Netherlands? And what? Literally, yeah. You've got to go. You've got to go to Netherlands, man. You've got to tell me when you're there. And what
Yeah,
are you looking forward to? There's a question I'd never asked before. What are you looking forward to?
it's a good question. It is a good question. It gets me thinking. In the summer, I'd enjoy being there, but yeah, maybe not so much in the winter.
Okay, yeah.
So
Nearly
the
there.
plan at the moment, the plan at the moment is just scaling my business. Like really refining who I'm helping, the whole process of learning and growing with that. Like business is kind of an extension of yourself, and it's very exciting growing that out and having ownership and aligning your purpose to your means of income. So that's something that I'm excited about growing. It's sort of it's kind of nerve wracking in a way as well, but like growing with that and overcoming those mindset obstacles is part of the process. So yeah, I'm looking forward to growing that out. And I think for me, at the stage of my life I'm at currently, I'm really looking at things a lot more in terms of financials and like understanding my financial goals, understanding my mental relationship to the philosophy of money, etc. And yeah, just getting into a position where I feel very financially comfortable, I guess, and free to just be moving around and then sharing what I've learned with other people.